Welcome to One-on-One Live with Coach Blu on the new Riverside FM. Let's check out some of our social media at it to see if we're really broadcasting.
Okay.
Because I don't know if we are or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do, because
It looks like we are. It looks like this might have been a complete success.
We're live on Facebook.
Look at the big brain on Marissa.
Okay, what else are we going live on, though?
We're everywhere. We're using a Restream. It's like our Riverside Restream, just like we did last night.
Okay.
So we're good. Just I hijacked it. I moved around. I tucked and rolled, and there we go. It worked.
Right.
Excellent.
Welcome to our weekly show, One-on-One with Coach Blu and Marissa.
And Marissa. Let's not forget you. We're using our podcasting platform. This is a great platform. It helps us reach more people, and I'm really excited to see what this is going to do, Marissa. This is a great avenue to help bring some awareness. One-on-One Live with Coach Blu is our weekly call-in show. You can submit questions, which we have. And since we did switch platforms today, you may have a difficult time trying to locate us, but don't worry. More information about that will come.
Yeah, we've got to work out some kinks with this new platform. It's hopefully going to be a better one, and then we can post links everywhere so people can come on and go live and ask questions. But please feel free to submit them via email or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. So that being said, let's give these listeners a little update on some of the happenings. Right now, we are still currently collecting for the Project ELF, and I want to give a shout out and thanks to all the athletes who participated in the county-to-county relay that raised about $1,300.
Yes.
For Project ELF, and Project ELF is Addict to Athlete service project through December for Christmas, by which we are able to help offer Christmas to families who are struggling, specifically with kids that may have a family member that struggles with addiction or whatnot. We are open for a few people to jump on and.
Oh, can they get on?
No, I'm talking about we're open to have people submit their applications.
So if you are interested in needing some help for Christmas and you're in the Wasatch Front area, most specifically if you're in recovery or you are maybe a foster parent and the kids that you foster, their parents are working on their recovery, or even if they're not, we don't want the kids to go without. So please email me, Marissa at addict2athlete.org. So I can send you an application. We would like to get applications turned in by at least the first week of November, if not sooner. So please let us know if you're interested in, or if you know somebody who may need some help this holiday season. We want to help. So that's what we're here for. So we have the different ways, lots of ways. If you need help or if you're willing to help us, please email me. Our Facebook fundraiser for Project ELF will be open till Halloween. And I think all those links are on our website as well. If you go to I think it's about Addict to Athlete and go to our events calendar. There's information on there.
All that stuff. So it's a great time to serve. And I know that it's been super stressful for a lot of people out there. The 2021 year, as maybe not as challenging as 2020, but still nonetheless, there's still been a lot of struggles. So thank you everyone who's donated. And if you'd like to, please, we are still collecting donations. So thanks so much.
Yeah. And if you're interested in even just sponsoring a family, we would love it. Let me know. Or even kind of being the supervisor and helping maybe shop and organize all the stuff for families. There's lots to do around the holiday season to help. So
jump on our Addict to Athlete website. Super easy to find. addict2athlete.org. You'll find all of our backlogged podcasts. You'll find resources and things available for you to learn more about addiction. There's so much there, and it's all free. So jump on there and check it out. You can jump on and get our apparel line. Is that what you call it? Our merchandise line?
Merch, swag. I don't know what.
I don't know if I can say merch. That sounds
new swim. New terminology.
It does. Come find our merch. Anyway, official Team Addict to Athlete gear can be found there, from our official running jerseys all the way up to our extracurricular recovery line, which is awesome. I'm loving it. I know a lot of people say this, but the shirts are great.
Yes.
They really are great.
I've been picky about shirts and graphics and design since I was a young,
Since the inception of the team.
well, before that. I was talking to Brooklyn when I was in high school. I hated buying our high school stuff because they had our mascot was a lion, and they always had the dumbest graphics. Finally, when I was a senior, I was on student council, so I designed the shirt. And
They still talk about that in the hallways.
I'm
They're
sure
like,
they
"Do you remember
do.
that
I'm
year?
sure they do.
1994, that was a good year for the
1994.
t-shirts.
We had good stuff then.
Yeah, and we're going to be putting some new stuff up there, so keep an eye on it. Jump on. It seems like things are starting to pick back up. The supply chain that we had got super far behind because of a lot of the COVID stuff
Yeah,
and a
a
lot
lot
of
of
back
COVID
orders they were
issues.
dealing with. We had a chat with them. It seems like things are starting to get back up to par. So, yeah, order it for Christmas, for holidays, and addict2athlete.org. Marissa, this platform is for people to submit questions, talk about mental health and recovery, anything really. And we've got a few here chambered that are probably going to kickstart this whole discussion off on an interesting foot.
Okay.
You ready? Number one. You ready?
Number one.
Number
Let's
one.
hit it.
Coach Blu, I've heard you talk a little bit about treatment and a lot about sober living. Tell me about why sober living may not be right for everyone, and how do you know if it's right for someone? What are the pros? What are the cons? And what does it truly take to be able to be successful on a program with sober living as an aftercare objective?
Oh, geez.
Okay, I think I know this person who's asking me this, and I'm pretty sure it's because I talked a little bit about this in one of the live videos I did about sober living. Now, we do not align ourselves with any sober living programs here. Having had experience owning one, I can only go off of what I've seen, and I can only go off of the clients that I've worked with who have been in them.
Yes.
So let's start this way. Sober living, for those that don't know, maybe it's a new listener out there. How would you describe a sober living house?
So sober living is a place, usually an apartment building or like a house, that you pay rent plus extra for kind of supervision, accountability, UAs. So there's usually a house manager, somebody who is also somewhat new in recovery, but oftentimes, 6 months clean or a year clean. And they have become they're kind of the supervisor of the house. So you usually, often when you first come into sober living, it's a way to get some accountability and some check. You have curfews, chores, jobs. It's kind of learning to live with other people and have practice life skills and being able to budget and make your own meals and get a job and start living a recovery-free, I guess, drug-free life. And they also do random UAs, and they have house meetings, kind of check-ins for issues that come up, things like that. Overall, it sounds like a phenomenal idea. The application of is much more difficult.
It is. It is.
So.
The application it's fragile at best. And what I mean by that is you're typically going from maybe an intensive residential treatment program to a less structured, maybe IOP or GOP outpatient program. And people use sober living to kind of be the net that catches the folks after like residential treatment.
Yeah.
The problem that I've seen with most sober living houses is that they are extraordinarily costly. They are so expensive. And for what you get, I'm not sure if it's the right move for everybody because it's significantly high. And the reason why is because it's also a business, and we have to always remember that it's a business too. And
it's usually a business first in most cases.
Everything be that way, right?
Yeah.
But when we're dealing with this kind of stuff, we have to also understand that you're moving from a very structured environment in a residential treatment program to a very, I guess, less structured environment with a desire to be equal to what residential looks like, and it can't be.
Yeah.
So really you're moving into a place where you have more responsibility, it costs more, and you have the same level of responsibility. Challenging. And the reason that gets kind of challenging is because now you're back into the real world. You may be working, you may be getting back into the swing of things with relationships and whatnot, and you still have kind of the curfews and the things that are designed to help keep you safe. But I find most people fight with that too, and it's great. But it's like it's the perception of freedom, but it's not. And if you go into a sober living environment thinking that it should be less structured and whatnot, then you're probably going to have a miserable experience there. It can be super beneficial for someone who's utilizing the program to its fullest.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of pros and cons. There's a lot of cons. The first con that I see that that kind of maybe against sober living house is that there's a perception of freedom, but there's not the application of it. And if you have a struggle or if you have a slip or even a relapse, typically old school thinking is to kick you out. Mm-hmm. And I can think of no more severe, place in life to be as a person who has just had a successful completion of a residential treatment center and then had reality kind of kick you in the face as you get back into the real world, have a slip and then be out.
Yeah.
Now that is deadly and has been for a long time. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's right. I understand why they do it because it's solving the problem for them immediately. They're taking a person who has the potential to spoil the bunch, the one bad apple. But that one bad apple has a life and has an existence too. And so instead of, putting in more effort and more work into, a person exhibiting behaviors of an addiction, it's usually we're going to kick you out and we'll have you come back in 3 or 4 days. Because sometimes a week.
The concept is they need to keep the house healthy and safe. And somebody who's relapsed has potential triggers and causes issues with the rest of the house, which is very understandable.
But there's a more excellent way I believe this can be done, because I've seen more often than not when that person does return and come back to treatment, super difficult. There's hoops to jump through. Sometimes the house manager's not available, and what should have been come back on a Monday turns up to come back on a Wednesday, and there's this weird kind of dragging of the feet. And basically what they're saying is we don't want you here anymore without saying we don't want you here anymore.
Well, and it's hard because if somebody's going to sober living, most of the time that's the issue in that is because they don't have anywhere else to go. If they did, they probably would choose that and they would just go get an apartment or go live with family, and that would be that. Often they choose sober living because they have nowhere else to go. So if they get kicked out because they've relapsed, where do they go? The street. Who can stay sober on the street? I mean, it's getting cold outside. You don't want to be on the street. So what do? You go get high. You think, okay, well, I just lost it all. Why keep trying? Because I don't have anywhere else to go.
The whole thing repeats itself.
Yeah. Or they say, oh, well, you messed up. Time to go back to residential. Let's go do another 6 weeks after previous 6 weeks. Not sure what that's going to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that all depends on how much your insurance is willing to pay and if they are in the first place.
Yeah.
So then it goes back on to family systems and things of that nature, and it becomes this ugly cycle.
Yeah.
What I believe truly should happen is that there should be a lot more structure, even more so than residential treatment, in sober living. Mm-hmm. I'm talking not just, the oldest or the eldest, individual at sober living kind of being the house manager, but trained clinical staff.
Trained professionals.
And
do they need to be in the house at all times? No.
No.
But, and this is why it's difficult, they need to have people on call. They should have a sudsy on call. They should have a therapist on call, so that as issues come up, those can be addressed, and then you can look at how can we work towards helping this person, because obviously something has come up to trigger this. So if you want them to really get help, there's something that caused this trigger, the craving and the relapse or the slip. If all of a sudden they're on the street, they're not going to worry about why they slipped, worrying about where do I eat? How do I stay warm? What am I going to do? There's no way they can address the real thing that caused the problem. And then that gets shoved to the bottom of the barrel. And even when they come back, they're worried about, again, what do we worry about first? It's our comfort, it's food, shelter, water.
Shelter.
You can't think about any emotional distress or any other issues and problems if you need to worry about food, water, and shelter.
Yeah.
It can't happen.
It's a strange Neanderthal type thinking. And I get it. And guess what? It's going to cost a lot of money, which guess what? People got into sober living houses to try and make fast cash. And a lot of people in recovery started doing this with a desire to want to give back, but with the inability to maintain. And what I mean by that is, again, trained clinical staff.
It costs a lot for that
of money
to be able to put in that support. But in most cases, they're paying for a lot. So
they are. And sometimes they're paying upwards of, 5, 6, 7, sometimes 800 or more for a shared bedroom.
Yeah, this isn't a house. This isn't an apartment. It is a shared room often.
Absolutely. And so with not enough vision / stewardship, we find that these things barely run. Now, the intention is good. I love the fact that these things are there. But I've seen more struggle and stress come out of these than I have success.
Yeah.
And
because again, it's trying to bring people together, like-minded people who have, goals on recovery, but it's also like-minded people who are struggling to stay above water. So then you have that concept too, that people are slipping and relapsing and struggling, and you're trying to do well, and all people are doing is, war storying and talking about stuff that's going to bring up triggers and issues with the people who are really trying to stay clean. So again, it may work for some people, but you've got to go in with an open mind and really know
and
the good,
it's a
bad,
lot of
and the
freedom at
ugly.
once. All of a sudden, you got your cell
Yes.
phones, you got these things, right? That's why I'm thinking maybe the whole premise needs to change. Why do we take cell phones away from people in residential therapy?
Yeah.
Well, because we don't want them making calls to their drug dealers. Well, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because that
Guess
to me
what?
is great fodder for what the crap's going on in treatment. If we see in real time this person's trying to make a hookup, so when the group goes down to the to the gym or to a meeting and they're bumping into people, those are exhibits of their addiction.
Yeah.
Use it, but instead we take that stuff away, and so when they get it back, they
Well, and I get the point. You're trying to
I
take
do
away
too.
temptation, but guess what?
You can't.
We did treatment for a long, long time. Those people that want to use or want to get back out on the street, they do, whether they had a phone or not. They are the most amazing problem solvers. An addict is the most amazing problem solver in the world. If
most
there's something
resourceful
they
individual
want,
ever.
they get it. So taking away their phones doesn't do anything. So to me, they're like, oh, well, it's a distraction. Okay, well, if somebody goes into treatment or to get care for cancer, do they take away their phone and say, you need to focus on you? You need to focus on your treatment. You cannot have any distractions.
It's such old school thinking.
Oh
It
my
doesn't,
gosh.
and it doesn't work.
If people want to say that this is the disease model and it's all going to be all encompassing, okay, if you send anyone to the hospital for diabetes treatment, for cancer treatment, for, chemotherapy, you don't take away their phones and cut them off from the outside world. I mean,
You teach balance.
Come on.
You teach respect. You teach
yeah.
appropriateness.
And
You teach these things.
using that phone and having loved ones who really love and support them, that's probably what they need most.
You do realize we're speaking blasphemy right now, right?
I know.
Because again, it's the way someone designed it, and everybody modeled it after whatever somebody else did, and then now we have this.
Yeah.
So when they come out and they start having these freedoms where they need more attention and more hands-on, boots on the ground, it's typically just an outpatient setting, which is anywhere from 12 hours a week to below.
Yeah.
And it's like that is insane.
Yeah.
But then you also have the concept of medications that these people are on, and they don't give them all their medications when they kick them out, because obviously we don't want them walking around with all their medications. But there are so many.
And then they go into withdrawal, or they go into
Factors.
other issues, because then they have this mental health stuff on top because they only sent them with 1 or 2 or 3 days medication or less. And then
Well, and what I've noticed too, and I'm excited for this week's podcast on Addict to Athlete's podcast, where we have an expert in autism that's going to be speaking to us about addiction and autism. What I'm finding is that we also have people making decisions with very limited to no understanding of what these individuals are truly dealing with. I've had multiple clients that I've worked with over the years who exhibit and have been diagnosed with autistic features, who look like they are being emotionally aggressive, as if they are, power tripping, but really these are symptoms of their autism, and they get booted out for being rigid and non-compliant. and that's the signed death certificate, you guys.
Yeah.
So here we are saying, oh, well, I come in to get a UA from this person and he flips out, and he's resistant to the program, and then that staff has a chip on his shoulder. And there's one here in Utah County that I swear I'm inches away from giving their name, because the staff there, absolutely ridiculous. Yeah. We instructed the staff, we taught them, we preached with them, but there was one power tripper guy who didn't like one of our clients, who had this principle, this issue, this diagnosis, and he
And it's just
he transferred all of his stuff onto him and booted this person out after tons of time to get him in there. It's like, you idiot.
And tons of education.
And it makes me so mad, because I'm like, you guys are seeing like all most people see one size fits all. Mm-hmm. How do you know when addicts lying? Their mouths are moving. If that is your mentality, get the hell out of this industry.
Yeah.
You are done. You are old school thinking. Get out of the way so that we can start helping people, get this, actually heal. Yeah. Because if your mindset is once an addict, always an addict, how do you know they're lying? Their lips are moving.
You're talking.
Shit you not hope. Get out of the field. You're done. You are too burnt.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of those out there, a ton.
Yeah. And every time somebody thinks they're, don't want to follow your rules, that they're just being an addict. They're trying to be deceitful. They're trying to get away with something. Sometimes they're saying, I don't think this worked for me. I don't like treatment this way. But everyone else promotes this. No, we do individualized treatment and we do everything different for everyone. And what's best for you? No, you don't.
I believed in that too. I believed in that because at the program that Marissa and I owned, I created a program that would be individualized, and it worked really well. Mm-hmm. The problem is that there was no continuity in the care, meaning everything we taught at a high level at a residential fell apart as they moved on.
At the next step.
And that was kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
Oh, that was Nacho that jumped ship. Do you see that?
Nachos?
My Nacho Libre guy.
Nacho Libre just jumped off the desk.
He's feeling it. He's going from the top turnbuckle. But that's the thing is, you can't. And you can train this, but when you have staff that are like, we're old school, abstinence is the key, then you have completely just like negated everything that this person's been working for.
Yeah.
The problem with that, you guys, is that then it's a reciprocative thing. It keeps rolling over and over and over. And pretty soon we start getting in situations where the client feels as though there's no help, that no one can help me.
And there's no hope for them. What if they're recognizing maybe that abstinence, 100% abstinence, isn't going to work for them? They've tried and tried and tried, and all that does is just shame-based.
Even with all the research out there, we still have programs that refuse MAT.
Yeah. And the best, most researched treatment out there for addiction is medicated. It is the highest, researched. It's the longest researched. And people are going along with what's in, I don't know, a book from the 1950s on how it should be.
Yeah. And see, and that's the problem, is because I would love to know where all this stuff was created and everyone just copycatted it into its existence now. But there's a more excellent way to be doing this. These programs that try to wean people off of their medication so fast, that is thinking that is probably 10 years ago. You guys have got to catch up. And here's the other thing too, is again, 10 years ago, you would have never heard me like say, yeah, there are other resources out there from like Suboxone and those kind of things, all the way up to THC and some ketamine treatments and those things that have medical like purpose and use. But again, that old school mindset of abstinence is the only way is nonsense. And if you don't believe me, we are still losing too many people to call your process correct.
Yeah.
So it's a hard one, because I also know there are people that get in there and they succeed. Yeah. They get in there.
And that's where it goes. A lot of times those guys are the ones that are the loudest. The only way I got clean is when I went to sober living and I got kicked out on the street and I didn't have anything else. And so I recognized I needed to do something different. Yes, there are people that works for, but there's a lot that it doesn't. And that's the whole point, because if that's where we're at, I know a ton of people. So why do we even offer treatment? Because I know a handful of people that got clean from jail or prison. So that's what we should be doing, right?
100%. But see, the situation even with that is that it's the ones that were going to make it anyway. And what I mean by that is we are these people who are over situations like sober living, dual diagnosis, and understanding that their diagnosis is very rarely, if ever, just substance abuse. You're forgetting that they also come with like depression or with borderline personality or with autism, and they have all these other features. And we think that because the one all be all, and it's not.
Yeah.
9 times, 1,000 times out of 1,000 times, addiction is a subset to another disorder. And the problem with that is if we're treating every disorder as if it's addiction and substance use only, then we'll never help the people that truly need it heal.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? And so, yeah, it may work for some of those people that get kicked out and cuffed, but guess what? Those are the kind of people that just needed a little bit of a push, and they're going to do it. But the ones that are clinically depressed, the ones that have like OCD tendencies or autism, those kind of features, those are the ones that we'll miss. We're not going to get them.
Yeah.
So it is hard. I think we need to do a ton more research, and most family systems are happy to see sober living because then it's someone else's problem.
Yeah.
And I'm not be mean to family systems.
Yeah,
It's
we're not saying the family has to pick them up.
Not at
and
all.
Take care of it.
But what I'm saying is that this is a call and a plea for these programs to not try and get a get-rich-quick scheme because sober living is not economically viable. It's just not.
Well, for the ones that get, yes, there are many that do. I can't count how many people.
I'm talking about as a business,
Yeah.
not as a.
But even as a sober living, I can't tell you how many people it's like, oh yeah, you come in, you've got to give me your $800 rent. Oh, oops, you slipped. You had a relapse 2 days later. Goodbye. They just got $800. You don't get a refund, and they can fill that bed again, and they can make $800, $800 on multiple, clients within a month. And slip, move out. Slip, move out. Okay, look, they're making lots of money.
Yeah.
Lots of money.
And I hope the tides are changing, but I'm telling you, this little situation Marissa and I have been talking about, the one that you probably saw got a little hot under the collar, has been recent. And I'm telling you, that is thinking that is way out of date. And I think that's why we still have such a big problem with it. So my true and unadulterated opinion of sober living is that I really think that the system needs to be overhauled.
Yeah.
The problem is that who's going to do it? Because that means you may not be making tons of money. Mm-hmm. You may not even be breaking even. That's the sad thing about it.
It takes work, like you say. I mean, to have a clinician on call or available to be able to help when somebody really does slip and makes a mistake, that's the thing. They do need somebody to grab their hand and give them some, talk to them, and have somebody there for the other ones in the house that may be going, oh, that's a trigger that he just used, but it's not the time that you just boot them on the street.
We worked with a bachelor level student at our sober living that saved many lives. He truly did. Mm-hmm. And the problem is that he was there 24/7.
Yeah.
And it burned him out, and we were always so thankful because he was doing it. But did we really realize how much he was doing?
Yeah.
And you do.
And that
you
he
get burned
needed
out.
more, like you need more than one person
Mm-hmm.
to be in charge of that because it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, and the first time I ever saw what sober living was on Dr. Drew's recovery program, and we've had her on the podcast, Jennifer Jimenez.
Jennifer Jimenez, go back. It's a man and woman in recovery, and phenomenal.
And I remember when we were interviewing Tim Ryan, and he's like, "Do you want my wife to be on here?" I'm like, well, "Okay, sure." And she got on, and I'm like, "I know her from somewhere."
Well, he's like, well, she's in the other room doing an interview. She's going to be late with Inside Edition. And I'm like, who is his wife?
The wife, yeah. And then when she told me that she knew Dr. Drew and stuff, it hit me. I'm like, she was the sober living
She was the sober
staff.
She was the house manager.
At Dr. Drew's thing. And I remember thinking, she scared the crap out of me because she was so mean. And I remember thinking, man, but the thing is she's a professional. And that's what she did. And she held the line. Yeah. And she cared. And it was like, yeah, they go the extra mile. And I think that must be what Dr. Drew kind of implemented. And it was kind of cool to kind of see that. But that was the first time I had ever seen what sober living was. Mm-hmm. And it was cool because I'm like, wait a minute, that's it. So now seeing it, having been a part of it too, it's it is such a fragile, like I think location for someone to be in, that there needs to be so much more attention given.
Yeah.
And do your research, people, if you're looking for one of these, because
Find out what kind of supports
man.
they offer when somebody struggles. Ask what do they do if somebody slips? What do they, do they offer resources? Do they give them somewhere?
How do they work with
Yeah.
your loved one's diagnosis?
Yeah. And what do they know and understand about dual diagnosis, about some of the mental health issues that these clients are having? They're not just dealing with a number. And a lot of times they want to just deal with a number.
And this is the thing. This is why I want you all to tune in on Monday for this next podcast, because she takes a very deep dive into autism.
Yeah,
And
this Monday's podcast is not to be missed.
now, here's the funny thing: is Marissa and I laughed at this concept for years because we saw it, we worked with it, and that is that those who typically carry an autistic spectrum type disorder don't have addictions. That is bull. That needs to be slapped upside the head too, because it is a perfect way for people who feel very much like they do to mask and to accommodate themselves and to try and feel normal. And
They're feeling overloaded.
oh my
and,
gosh,
they have that sensory overload and burnout from stressors.
I've seen blog posts on professional treatment programs that say, no, it's not possible. Yeah, it is. It's not possible. Just like when I was told that gabapentin couldn't be abused. Well, then why are my clients coming in having lost their prescriptions every week?
Just like
I don't know.
all of those people that used to say,
Oh yeah,
oxycodone is not
It's
abusable.
good for you. No,
It's good for you.
problem.
It's good for you. They don't always know.
No, they don't.
And yes, so Monday's episode is with a woman named Alex Pearson. She has her master's in organizational psychology, but she was also just recently diagnosed with autism, and she's phenomenal.
And she is a TikTok superstar.
Yes,
So
she
check
is.
her out. But she goes into great detail. Now, here's the thing: is that most people have zero clue spectrum. It comes across as looking like antisocial behavior and rigidity and all these things, but you've got to slow way down with these people. You can't just throw your terms and your desires and your wants at them. You have to slow things down to almost a touch by touch by touch by touch request. It's not, hey, get down here for a group. It's 45 minutes, an hour before group, saying, hey, we got group coming up in an hour. Is there anything you need me to help you with before it starts? And then checking with them 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to let you know that 45 minutes we're gonna go. Are you getting close to being done? If not, how can I help?
Yeah.
And it's those kind of things. But when we walk around thinking we know how important we are in our jobs, and we're like, oh, you're not doing your job. You're giving me pushback. You're out of here. It's the stupidest thing.
They don't go by the traditional way of treatment, and everyone wants to do that traditional way of treatment with everyone like it's a cookie cutter, and it's not.
Absolutely. So really, and I know why you asked this question. I hope that gave you an answer. There's the other side of the coin too, is that I know there's good ones out there. There has to be, because they all can't be this bad. But you got to do your research. You have to do your research, people.
I am starting. I've already started a conversation with this on LinkedIn. I'm in a group of addiction professionals that are like alternative concepts and treatments for addiction. And so I've posted there. We do a monthly Zoom meeting, and my hope is to bring this up and start talking with some other people who have really done amazing things in the arena of addiction recovery outside of the traditional box. And there are quite a few of us. I think there's about 50 in this group. And most of the time on the Zoom calls, there's, 10 to 20. Phenomenal. Some of these ideas going and running on, like, how can sober living be changed? How can it be run differently? We've shared our ideas today. I would love to hear from anyone else out there as well, of ideas. Maybe if you've been a client in sober living and you have ideas and thoughts on what you think
How to
would
make it
be
better.
different and better, please, I'd love to hear. I'm always open to learning and hearing about, if I don't own a sober opinion. So
Yeah, I'd love to learn from the professionals really how you feel about it too, because I know when you're employed by them, it's a little hard to be vocal, but oh well. I think we're doing we're trying to assist a great disservice, not holding ourselves to a higher standard. So that's my own thought process. But it's true. I mean, you guys, there's still so many out there, and we're learning. And this is a fluid type experience, meaning that we have to keep ourselves at the edge of what's coming next. And again, if you do not change your process on how to help people and become more involved, then you will become ancient. Again, I mean, it was just an abstinence-only world for a long time. That hurt a lot of people. So now we're
still does.
To unravel all the damage
Because
that's created when someone needs medication.
Yeah.
And don't flip and compare it to diabetes and all. That's the stupidest thing. Okay, the argument is dead, gone, over. We're done with that too. Just stop. Like some of the old thinking. And while we're at it, let's stop showing 28 Days as a video. We've seen it. That movie.
Yeah.
Holy crap, man.
There's many like that.
Oh my gosh.
Even...
Stop showing movies in treatment.
There we go.
I mean, Marissa, that's one thing that I got to hand it to you. You made me a very good clinician because you're a rec therapist and you're like, they do not need to be sitting around here watching movies.
Yeah.
But it's the easy babysitting thing to do.
Oh, absolutely. It drives me nuts. Because guess what? Everyone knows how to watch a movie. Everyone knows how to go to the theater and watch a movie.
Do?
They don't need to learn that. Yes, there are some good movies that have some very inspirational and educational topics. I love Disney's Inside Out. There's a million others that
process.
But if you're going to discuss it, not just stick it on and call it good.
And I think very much kind of done lightly and not something like a standard issue thing either. That's kind of an interesting thing. But I guess while we're at it too, then if you truly want to get the full measure of a program, make sure that you don't go to a program clinically licensed recreational therapist amongst them.
Amen.
Now, this is a whole nother thing, and therapists have been pushed out because we can pay a line staff or someone else to do that. No, you can't. These people are specifically trained in recreational therapy.
It's not just
because you know how to go bowling doesn't qualify you for that. This is a bigger deal than this. I remember talking to a program in St. George who very much advocated for rec therapy. We were at the University of Utah doing a presentation.
I remember who that guy was.
Again, we were not affiliated, but I was so happy. And a couple of our athletes work for them too.
Oh yeah. I wondered if that was the same one.
And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. But in a world of budget cuts, when we want to make the top dollar, we don't want to pay people to do things that we can get away with. Again, having a line staff do, guess who gets kicked out first?
But you have those staff that are like so good at rock climbing and like that's what they're passionate about. It's not about, when I do rec therapy, it's not about rock climbing. That is like the smallest portion of quote what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, it's an industry by which you're getting fewer and fewer of them, but you miss out on that kind of stuff. But see, if you do a good job at the beginning with things like that, and you teach them how to be disciplined, you teach them how to see recovery in everything they do, by the time they get to sober living, they already have resources. They know that, okay, I like rock climbing, I'm going to go do this, or I like this, I'm going to go do that, or photography, whatever. But we don't. We focus on sometimes the wrong things. And that's why, again, residential was never designed to be kind of like the cure. It's a triage. The cure comes in the
community,
sober
the
living
support,
stuff. It's a
family,
community spot. Absolutely.
Transitioning there to the family. I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you address what this person specifically talking about a spouse who struggles with addiction, when everyone you hear says, okay, you need to address your issues, they need to address theirs, but you're married, you're supposed to help each other. How do I talk to them? Do I do marriage therapy and counseling when they're in, active addiction or early on in recovery? Or is that a secondary thing that we worry about later?
No. And it needs to be very much a part of their program from day one. But here's the thing too, is we're in Neanderthal type thinking here, because that's an Al-Anon principle by which you stay in your lane. You thought I was on a soapbox
Here we go.
a second ago. Started on this because the Al-Anon principle, although I understand it, it is a direct copy of the 12 steps that was designed for people in relationships with people with alcoholism and drug abuse. It's dumb. It is dumb. They're trying to mimic and copy something that works here and trying to push it into this, and it doesn't work that way, you guys. Oh my gosh, how deep do you want to go on this?
Well,
because it's a great question.
Yes,
it needs to happen from day one. Because it's not a your problem, my problem. It's an our problem, and that's the thing is we try to like separate people so much that then the person who's at home, the spouse, you don't get as much therapy and counseling as the guy in treatment. They get 24/7, and you're supposed to catch up to that. And I'll tell you, the program I worked at did very little family therapy. It was up to me to make the calls. They didn't have family groups. They didn't have any of these things. And when they did, it was very weak on the outside. So yeah, you're stuck there now thinking, all right, well, shoot, they're going full throttle. I'm barely learning how to do this kind of stuff. And then I feel guilty because they're coming home and they're having all these emotions, all these changed experiences. And I'm still kind of pissed that things haven't changed. And I was here alone. And yeah. I mean, can you imagine how hard that would be?
Oh, absolutely. Like, yeah, when I ever bring it up in discussions or on, Facebook groups, it's, oh, absolutely. If somebody's in early treatment and therapy, they need to work on themselves. You don't do marriage counseling. Nope, you do it all.
You do it all.
You do it all. Yeah, there may be a week or two that they need to focus on them and they need to get clear-headed and to detox or whatever, but then family system issue, and it's been said that way all along. So why do you think you can't do therapy together? Why do you think you can't discuss and address some things together?
I'll tell you why. It's freaky.
Yes.
It's hard for a therapist to be up there and be neutral. And I'll be honest with you, it is so hard to find therapists that are neutral, that don't placate to one person to make them feel good, and at the same time, maybe you need to leave that relationship. Maybe you need to put distance between them. What's their problem? There are two perspectives on each person, and I don't do that. I truly do not do that. If I see one of my clients and they're giving me the sob story, I'm like, well, that's one perspective. Now let's get her in here. And guess what happens? A whole nother one. And very rarely have I ever seen what the first person said to be the absolute truth. It's the way they see it.
Yeah.
And the fact is
and that's part of what needs to be discussed in therapy and counseling is that perspective shift. And how do you see somebody else's situation in their eyes, not just your own? Because does that mean that your client is wrong or their spouse is wrong? No. It's being able to see it in different eyes and being able to have understanding and empathy towards each other.
Absolutely. You both have to be able to go there. I'm working with a couple right now, and it's kind of interesting. They're young, and they've had some problems, and each of them have such this bizarre kind of like perspective that validates their own feelings. Yet together, I'm like, you guys, look at what you're both saying. You're saying the exact same things. You're just out of rhythm. And once you reset that and we start finding out where these core issues are, teach them how to communicate, because we don't teach people how to communicate.
No.
Once you teach about how to avoid arguments and fights by getting into like conflict resolution, you'll be amazed what happens. But you can't do that while you're sitting home hoping you get a weekly hour with a group. It doesn't work. And I would stay away from Al-Anon as much as you can, because those 12 steps were never designed for that.
Yeah.
They've buggered them up and put it in there because it's easy.
They're trying to cookie cutter and say that you're addicted to your addict. And yes, there's some issues with a lot of people that way in being codependent, but go see a therapist or read a book on codependency. That doesn't
Listen
mean
to
you
Dr.
have...
Paul Jenkins' podcast with me about codependency and see how mucked up we've even made that. Because we use that term so frequently because it sounds cool and it seems like a one-size-fits-all. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, again, I hate to say it, but you guys have kind of been duped into a lot of things that sound real great, and it's a temporary fix, but in actuality, in practicality, it doesn't fit.
Well, a lot of times I believe it comes across that if you're married and you care about your spouse, you're codependent. No, that's called a relationship. That's called a marriage.
What?
Yeah. I mean, they're just like, do you understand that you can be married, or you can even have a boyfriend or girlfriend or just a friend and know how to support them without enabling them? And there's a difference in that, but you've got to learn how to understand what those things are between enabling and supporting. You've got to be able to set boundaries for yourself. It doesn't mean that you can be abused by your loved one who's an addict, by them just, sucking you dry of finances and emotions and everything else, but you can be supportive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same way in how we parent our children. If we can give them everything we want in the world, and they'll run right over us and take it all, that's for sure. But you can still love them and support them and say, no, that's it. That's all we can do for you.
What's interesting? The fact that this person even asked that question shows me to the degree by which they must really love their significant other. I mean, because if not, why would they care?
Yeah, many times they often already have just detached.
Which has boggled my mind.
Which
because
I understand, like that.
It
leads to resentment and stress and anger when they're just, abusing the relationship, abusing everything there. But if you really love somebody, you work at working it out healthy.
I think, and I want your opinions, I think as a married couple, specifically when you start having challenges, even as deep as this, the person with the issue and the person without these, you've got to be just real. Mm-hmm. Enough hiding. Say you're addicted to porn, okay? Guess what? They know you're addicted to porn. Start talking about it. Start figuring out why. 9 times out of 10, pornography addiction is not so much a sexual thing as much as it is a self-soothing mechanism. So why? What is stressful in your life? What are you not telling me?
Yeah.
Finances, all this stuff, you guys, it breaks down. We try to hide and we try to manipulate. That's not love. That is not okay.
Yeah.
No, if you're
you address it. I'm just done with you using, or I'm done with you part of, or gambling away all of our money. You figure it out.
No.
You're married or you're in a relationship and you're going to care about helping them. Again, you don't do it for them, but you can be a support and a resource. And yeah, it all starts with communicating and talking.
See, this is the thing, though, and I know that one size doesn't fit all, and what worked for you and I doesn't work for everybody. But I need to be very real with you listeners when I tell you that without me being held accountable, and it wasn't through force or through like threat, it was more of compassion by Marissa holding me accountable. It gave me the sense of she cares enough to stick around. I wonder why. I had to swallow a ton of pride, people. It wasn't easy for me to throw in the towel on what I truly thought was my existence, from abusive family systems to friendships to them making amends with people I lied to. I had to do that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't easy. I can't sit here and tell you I loved every second of that. The one time I remember calling a coworker of mine just sick to my stomach.
Hours, because we worked together. And I think I was probably more sick than you were.
Yeah.
Sitting next to you as you called him.
But when I did, he's like, Blue, it's fine. We love you, man. And I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, having to come clean with a bunch of lies that he had told them.
You guys, the only way I got clean and can say that I'm healed from addiction is because there was nothing left. It was all the way out. But I had someone in my corner to do it with. But I cared enough about her and I cared enough about myself to do the hard work. And that one thing I think is a universal truth. If you do not utilize this program that you're in, or the sober living program you follow after, to the utmost of what it offers, then you're the dumbest fool that walked the face of the earth. You have to let it all go. And that's talking about the abuse, the trauma, the sexual abuse, the physical trauma, the neglect, the abandonment. It's about letting it all go. You're holding on to it for some really sick reason, and you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
You're carrying it for no reason other than you've allowed it to become
Part of you.
part of you. And when I got done and I felt like, and I was empty, I remember breaking down one day like in our bedroom. And I was just crying. And Marissa comes in, she's like, what is wrong? I'm like, I have no idea. But I had, after I cleared all that garbage out, I had another trauma pop up. And I'm like, I've never even thought about this. And it was a dinger.
Yeah,
it was
serious.
sexual abuse I suffered. And I'm like, that's a humdinger right there. And I'm like, and she's like, well, why haven't you told me? I'm like, I remember thinking, if I told you this, I know you'd think less of me. And she's like, are you kidding me? But I couldn't use it as an excuse anymore because my horrible childhood, the scars I carry in my body, the thing that happened to me back then, I can't use it as an excuse anymore. Why? Because what am I going to do about it? The people that done, I don't know where to find these people. Shoot, most of them are probably dead and gone. So why have it be an anchor? Oh, I don't want anybody to know. If they find out I was abused, they'll think I'm a wuss or whatever.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest thing. You've got to be honest, and no, you don't separate and say that. No, you're in a relationship. You're married. You have a union. I mean, you don't heal separately.
No.
See, there's 3 stages of love. We've talked about them before. The falling in love stage, that feels great, but we're lying to each other. We're wearing masks. We show only the best parts of ourselves. That only lasts for so long because eventually the masks come off and you move into stage 2, which is falling out of love. And that's where, the real person kicks in and you're like, can I really be with this person? Right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that lasts a week, a day, a month, a year, maybe a lifetime. But there's a 3rd stage, which is learning how to love and learning how to be loved. And that would terrify most of you if you authentically drilled down on what that means. Allowing yourself to be loved by someone, despite the fact that you might have proof that love hurts, that love doesn't exist. To truly and authentically be loved by someone, but then loving them back.
And knowing and understanding that you're worth it.
We
and they're
don't,
worth it.
We don't process this stuff enough, you guys. We really don't. Why? Because it's not the heavy lifting stuff. It's not the big stuff. This is the stuff that gets down and hurts. Because how do you tell your spouse that I don't really know how to love and it scares me to death?
Yeah. I didn't have a lot of
Yeah.
experience with it. My parents maybe didn't know how to love themselves or how to show love. And now I've grown up not knowing and understanding what it was.
Absolutely. You can't do that separate. You can get separate. You can't heal separate.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Each of you got to do your own, but it can be done together. And the reason why it's not, it's hard.
It's hard.
It means that there'll be a time where I'll have to tell a client that I need their paycheck from to make sure they pay for their treatment, and that what they're doing is stupid, and that they need to pull their heads out, and that could risk they run away from it. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, but absolutely not. You do not heal separately.
Yeah.
And if you do heal separately, deep look at, is this relationship going to work?
Another question. How do you identify whether a relationship is toxic? And if it's to love or no, it was just struggling, trying through that.
Yeah.
And
there are 1,000,001 variables that could be on if you're in a toxic relationship. But you gotta be honest and say, what does it make you feel like? Like this person helping, well, I don't know, I'm gonna ask you this question, Marissa.
yeah.
Gonna get all weepy here. How do you know that I love you? Like how do you,
I can feel it.
but how?
But you show me
How?
every day.
How? What do I do?
The things you do for me, the care that you have and the things you say to me, everything. I mean, you always say, as you wish, when I ask you to do
Stuff, you know
I
that, right?
know.
Yeah. And we put in the stuff because we love the family. If relationship was toxic, would you know?
Absolutely.
How?
I would feel it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that I wouldn't love you and I wouldn't have, mostly if you've been with somebody for a long time, yeah, can you love somebody in a toxic relationship?
Would you be okay if you knew that my relationship with you is based solely on need and not want?
Would I know
And maybe,
that?
yeah, and maybe
Yeah.
maybe I have a pornography addiction, and my relationship with you is just coworkers. Maybe if I was drinking or using, right?
Yeah.
I was coming home and I'm like, what are you doing here all day? You're not doing anything. Like, I'm out working, doing all this stuff. I need some time to relax. All these kind of, right?
Yeah.
Would you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why would you never stand for that? Because I'm a firm believer, and maybe you shouldn't tell me either way, but like, if I truly got into that mindset where I'm like, I'm using, I'm drinking, I'm, my house, my rules, how long would you stay with me?
Not long.
Why?
It'd be over fast.
Why?
Because I care enough about myself.
There it is, listeners.
Yeah.
It's right there. See, Marissa scares the dickens out of most women because she is so independent. And I'll tell you, she does have a very soft.
Oh, yeah.
Is very soft, but she also doesn't tolerate, like, what do you think? Emotional manipulation.
Yeah.
She doesn't tolerate. How am I saying this? Like, emotional avoidance.
Yeah.
She doesn't tolerate playing small. She certainly doesn't tolerate women put in situations where they forget who they are. And it's made me a better person because I'm like, I know I can't pull one over on her. And I have enough respect and love for her to treat her with respect. And I said this to a client yesterday. I said, when you ask for your wife's hand in marriage and her mom and dad gave you the authority, the okay to do that, did you really understand the emotional contract you were signing? And most don't.
Yeah.
See, when I approached Marissa's mom and dad, I was coming to them with some chips on my shoulder, you guys. They knew that I had a history. They knew that I was an idiot. They knew that I had lied. Gonna marry your daughter? I have no idea why they're like, yeah, Blue, go ahead. Well, Gary said that. Marissa's mom sure gave me the once over, but I'm like, that is the coolest. So I almost felt like I had a responsibility. I took it very serious. Marriage needs to be taken seriously.
Yeah.
There can be no infidelity. There can be no, well, I guess I'm not getting what I want from this, so I'm going to go have sex with somebody else. It makes no sense. It's the most disrespectful thing ever.
Yeah.
I'll never understand for the life of me infidelity. I'll just never do it. Because it is the most obnoxious, disrespectful thing a person can do. At least have enough courage to say, we're done.
It's over.
It's over.
And then go your own way.
Absolutely.
So I have to share on unhealthy relationships.
It's good.
And then I guess 10 signs of a healthy relationship. Number 1 on unhealthy is the intensity. Okay, so yeah, love in the beginning is intense. Absolutely, that's going to be natural. But does that last and last? No, naturally it shouldn't. That's something that's that falling in love stage. So intensity. The second one is possessiveness. If you or the other is putting something on, they own you, you're part of them, they are, that's no possessiveness. Third one is manipulation.
Hold on, that possessiveness one. Gentlemen, pull your heads down to your asses. And if you're doing that, you better stop immediately. You do not own that individual in your life. You do not.
If you're trying to get, and obviously you want to spend some time with somebody that you love, but if you try to control who they talk to, who they're with, maybe trying to separate them, or you feel like that other person is separating you from maybe friends or family, and maybe even moving to another part of the country or place so that you can't talk to somebody, or you feel guilty talking to your mom.
You're a weak man.
That's a
and you
problem.
deserve not to be in a relationship. 100%.
Yeah.
I have
that's a
zero
problem.
respect for a guy that does that. Zero respect. Okay, moving on.
Yeah. Third one, manipulation. If there is manipulation to get somebody to do something, and not just being able to ask, and sometimes you get the word no, and you respect that, there's a sign of a toxic relationship. Fourth one, isolation. I think that's part of the, possessiveness. They try to keep you away from maybe friends and family and loved ones. I just lost this.
The isolation
so
thing is
good.
very real too, you guys. I mean,
Yeah.
that's, it's even
I
worse.
just want to spend time with you and just you, and I love you, and yes, that's kind of how it is at first, but you see things that you like and enjoy and can do separate.
You know where
from
I've
each
seen that
other.
the most? I've seen that in mixed families where maybe there's children from a previous marriage, and yet the new love interest doesn't want that.
Yeah.
And so they try to even isolate you from your own children.
Yeah. Fifth, sabotage. When someone purposefully ruins your reputation, achievements, or success.
That's why you stay off Facebook.
Yeah. So if you are feeling like you're being sabotaged by one or the other in a relationship, that's probably unhealthy. Next one goes along with it, belittling. When someone does
I've seen this a lot.
says things to make you feel bad about yourself. If you really love someone, you would never cut them like that. Like that just
I've
shouldn't.
seen, Marissa and I have seen people that do this, and
And people do it jokingly.
Oh, my husband, and then like these weird kind of like sucker punches. It's like, ooh.
Yeah.
Ouch.
That might be a sign. Next one is guilting. Using guilt. When someone makes you feel responsible for their actions, or makes you feel like it's your job to keep them happy, and you're the only one who can make me better or keep me happy, maybe a sign of a toxic relationship. Next one, volatility. When someone has a really strong, unpredictable reaction that makes you feel scared, confused, or intimidated, sign of a toxic relationship. Next
Yeah.
one, deflecting responsibility. When someone repeatedly makes excuses for their unhealthy behavior, doesn't mean they're even blaming you for it, but just deflecting responsibility. That may be a sign that they need to work on themselves a little bit more, and it could be toxic. The next one is betrayal. When someone is disloyal or acts in an intentionally dishonest way. So, yeah, like honesty is huge. And so, yeah, if there's a lot of lying in a relationship, might be a sign
Absolutely.
of something toxic. And this doesn't need to be romantic relationships either. Like this can be just friendships. If you feel that some of those signs relate, that's some signs of unhealthy relationships.
Absolutely.
So, here's some signs of healthy relationships.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah. Do you know what that is? I'm just going through.
I
So I'm
do.
getting these from a really amazing resource that I found a few months ago called One Love. So you're welcome to go there.
Bob Marley?
I wish.
Just messing with you. Carry
Yeah,
on.
it's awesome. That it's a comfortable place. The relationship moves at a speed that feels enjoyable for each person. The other one was, I think the first one was that intensity where it's just trying to go too fast, too quick, spend every second together, that you do it at a comfortable speed. The next one is trust, confidence that your partner won't do anything to hurt or ruin the relationship. Trust you. Goes both ways. Honesty. You can be truthful and can how the other. So you don't keep things from them because they may freak out, that you feel honest and be honest.
Yeah.
And that you also as being honest with the other person. Next, independence. You have space to be yourself outside of the relationship.
I like that.
That one's huge.
I love that.
Huge, that you can do things separately and still have fun and enjoy it and be okay doing something without the other person. You need to be able to have that healthy space.
That's a really healthy attribute.
Yeah.
I'll be 100% honest
Yeah.
with you. And knowing that, that you'll remain faithful, that there's no worry.
Like, what's he doing or what's she doing when she's not here? And
I don't
need to
think
know
I've
where she's
ever
at.
felt that with you. Not one time, Not one time. I like to joke when we were first married and you hugged that guy at UVU.
Oh gosh.
And I'm like, oh really? Who's that? Right? But it was like a friend from back in the day.
Yeah.
And you're like, by the way, he's gay. I'm like, I don't care, man. What's that?
Who's that guy?
But really, that to me is one of the coolest things too, is that just without a shadow of a doubt, I know you. That's actually really, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Next one, respect. You value one another's beliefs and opinions and love one another for who you are as a person. That means you may have agreements. You may have different viewpoints, and that
Do
it's
we?
okay. Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, we don't agree on everything.
No, we do not.
No, we do not. The next one, equality. The relationship feels balanced and everyone puts the same effort into the success of the relationship.
Do you feel we do that?
Yes.
I do too.
I think that there's been
I think
times.
there's times you lift more than I do, to be honest with
And
you. You're down here fixing our furnace, and I'm like, I have no idea what that
he
is.
freaks out. And
So if
I'm
you guys
like,
know a good furnace guy, let us know, because
our furnace is
bloody hell.
and it's kind of cold.
But I did feel kind of dumb, like last night when I was sitting on the couch and you come up with your screwdriver and flashlight. I'm like, what are you gonna do? It was cool though. But
I've gotten further along with it. But you have to be able to give and take. So yes, there's going to be times where I'm sick, I'm not feeling well. You obviously give a lot more, and you do it both. But if you
Did
feel
you know
like
I tried to
the
pull
other
that
one's
card the
doing
other night too? I'm like,
much,
I'm so busy. I had like 20. What did I have? I had like 9
Clients.
10 clients. It's 10 hours a day, but
you
I'm
were
like,
freaking out.
I really was.
And I understand, like that's hard.
But I know, but I was really milking it. Did you notice?
Yeah, and who put you in your place?
You did.
No, our daughter Savannah.
When? Oh yeah, she did. She does that from time to time.
Yes, she
doesn't
does. She's
Yeah.
like, I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning.
Well, that
I
was
haven't
yesterday.
had
That
one
was
minute.
yesterday's
Oh, that was
tantrum.
yesterday.
I'm talking about Monday's tantrum.
Yeah. So equal. Let's have some balance in these relationships. Next one, kindness. You're caring and empathetic to one another and provide comfort and support. And this goes both ways. Again, that goes back to equality. If you're the one that feels like you're always like doting over the other and, bringing them something, buying them something, showing them love, and they just like, hey, thanks.
That's that box one mentality.
Yeah. What are you giving to each other? Taking responsibility. You own your own actions and words. This is huge for us. This is one that we have always, not always. But yeah, when you
Eventually, always.
Yeah, when you get in an arguments don't happen between one person unless you have multiple personalities. And then that's still multiple people.
Yeah.
So if there is an issue, if there isn't a problem, it takes 2 to tango. That's the saying. So maybe you own and take responsibility and apologize for 10% of the problem and the other person is 90, or the other way around, or if maybe it's 50-50, but you own and take responsibility for your part and they own and take responsibility for their part. You don't try to take all of it and it's all my fault and you're so good and you're fine and I messed everything up. No, that's not healthy either.
I've really appreciated that in our relationship, I'll be honest with you. Like because I know when I'm being stupid. I know when I really want to be right. But it doesn't jive with us for that long. Does that make sense? And I really do think you do this better than I do.
No, you do.
Really?
Oh.
Well, thank you.
I have way too much pride.
Do you? Because I feel like you're the
You
one that comes a lot and
apologize
says things first. Like, I'm really like, well, yeah, I thought, and I'll kind of rub it in a little bit more. So I'm glad you see it that way, because I see it the opposite.
Yeah.
I guess that means it's working.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe it's the times I think I'm holding my island but
Eat
yeah,
some
it goes
pie,
both ways.
right? Like
Yeah.
chunga.
Eat some pie. The next one, healthy conflict. Here we go. Openly and respectfully discussing issues and confronting disagreements in a non-judgmental way.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do that in a healthy way, not judgmental? The other, you agree to disagree, but you still respect and love the other person, even if it's an issue between each other, not just maybe politics and, things that are really polarizing.
So this has been something that's been interesting in our lives too, because, again, Marissa's got a big heart, and when she serves people, she serves them, unequivocally. You just do. And there's been times with certain people that have been like, really, are you serious? And I'm like, I better shut my mouth, because you're doing things. And I like, years ago, same thing. I'm like, okay, you're going way above and beyond. And I've even had to like tell the kids, look, this is what's happening. Mom's serving out of extreme inconvenience. Let's be tolerant. There's times I get really pissed that you sometimes go above and beyond for people. I better shut my mouth, because there might be a day and time when I have to do that. But I've always give up on people that you truly believe in either. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Have I not told you that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm like, wait a second.
No, yes.
Yeah, it's hard. Well, it's hard
too, because I understand, like, yeah, I'm sacrificing our relationship and sometimes time with our kids
Yeah.
and things like that. But and I know sometimes I know I have pushed it too far, and I need to, reel it in and
absolutely.
do
But
something
you
different.
had to realize that for you, not me saying, well, look at this. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Because that would just cause resentments.
yeah.
And again, it's because I trust you and I love you. I think you know what your limits are, but it's true. And
And we talk about it, and sometimes
We
you
do.
do say, "Are you sure?" And you'd kind of check in, but yeah, you allow me to make those decisions on my own.
absolutely, I have faith in you.
And the last one, fun. You enjoy
joy.
spending time together, and you bring out the best in each other.
So it's funny because, we work together quite closely. We did this morning. This is our second little shindig. We
Today,
went
yep.
and did a presentation that was a little bit more in depth than I thought. And it was awesome. But like, we are,
Yeah.
and it's kind of crazy when I hear people say, oh, I can't stand being around my wife for too long or whatever. Like, I could never work with her like you. 'Cause I'm thinking, that's so weird.
Well, I think we met each other working together. So we've worked together. And I think that's probably why, since day one, and we've had all but I think one job at the same facility, the same organization, the same business. So I think we've just kind of learned from day one how to do it. So I understand, I guess, not everyone
It intimidates
comes
people.
that way.
It intimidates people.
Yeah.
They look at us and they're like, oh, you guys, maybe you should start Robinson Rehab.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good name. We should
Good
do
name.
that.
That sounds good.
Yeah, how about
But
that?
we also know how to have fun together, not just work. And we laugh a lot, and we watch lots of funny things together. And half of our text messages to each other are just funny TikToks. I'm like, I have to go back and find real information. I have to go back through quite a few TikToks
You know
to be
what,
able to get
though?
there.
You know what's cool about that, too, though, is I think the people that truly win are our kids. You
Yeah.
know? So, answering your question, there are a lot of warning signs that
Yeah.
you're in a toxic relationship. And as much as you want to make it look good, if any of those negative attributes even seem eerily familiar to you, you are in one.
You may need to really question and
Yeah.
look at something different.
And again, when I say it's a privilege to have a relationship with you, not a right, I'm dead serious with that. Most people don't understand that. And I'll never forget the guy at the program I worked at that left us a horrible review. It's like, that jackass, he's so narcissistic. That Google review. He's like,
Yeah.
he thinks it's a privilege to have a relationship with him. I'm like, well, it is.
It is.
It totally is.
But like you always say too, it's the reverse too. It's a privilege for you to be part of his life
Yep.
and to be part of other people's life.
100%.
And that's where we take it both ways, in that we respect each other, we respect others in that right too.
No, it's good. It's a great question.
Yeah. And that that you're toxic with, absolutely.
Yeah,
Really,
that's the hard part.
and that's the hard part. Otherwise it'd be easy to just walk away and say,
Yep.
oop, this was wrong. But if it really is an overall toxic situation, then a healthy relationship would bring so much more happiness.
But I also remember too, there was a mindset I had when I was going through a lot of my therapy and whatnot, even before we got married, that it was like, I wanted to show you to not give up on me, because I'm about to come alive. I'm about to wake up. And that's kind of a cool feeling, you guys, when your spouse or your loved one or your family has seen you at their worst. Wait until they see you at your best,
Yeah.
and
But I don't think we've ever had any of the toxic things. There were times where, yes,
I tried toxicity to our,
you were
our relationship.
you were unhealthy, and that there were things, but most of those were individual things you were struggling with.
Yeah.
It wasn't something in our connection and relationship with each other.
No.
Yes, some of the lies, that was bad.
Yeah.
But that's also when we kicked it in. Dawn, a friend of ours, kicked it in the butt and helped us work towards getting
It's
honest
true.
with each other.
And I'm telling you, I was really good at it, and I probably could have kept it going
You
for a
could
little
have,
bit longer, but
100%.
I decided to swallow the pride, and I was done. I was sick of it. Each of you will have to make that decision, that if you are truly done, and some of you won't be. Some of your relationships will remain toxic, and they will end up in you having to leave each other. And that's a sad thing. But you do not deserve to be disrespected. And guys, step it up. You've got to step it up. And I can only say that because I'm a guy, obviously. I think there's women that need to do that too. But step it up, guys. We can do much better than this. So
Yeah, it was long today, but
It
thank you
was
all
long.
for sticking with us. I think we had some great discussion.
we did. This can be found on the podcast being dropped on Friday. So
Yeah.
tune in
2
to
days.
One-on-One with Coach Blu
If you
on
missed the
Friday.
first part, we had some really good stuff on sober livings and
Yeah, that was kind of a soapbox
Residential,
moment.
so.
Absolutely. I want to thank Radio Ronin and the Radio Ronin Network for all you do to Team Addict II Athlete. Thanks so much for allowing us to be upon the platform and in the Radio Ronin family. Guys, go check out the other Radio Ronin podcast. Greg's Guide to New Music, great one to go listen to as you're running, walking, doing your exercises. And, of course, the Radio Ronin podcast with Josh, with Panda and Spencer and Chunga. Those are great episodes. Check out our website, addict2athlete.org. Jump on Facebook, follow us. Jump on YouTube. Let's get some viewership on there. You
get some
guys,
subscribers. We've got some really good old
if you're
stuff.
not done
You
with
can go back
with
there.
this ugly mug, there's tons of stuff on YouTube for you
You
guys
can just
too.
listen on YouTube too. You don't have to
Absolutely.
watch.
Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. And until next time, please go turn the mess into a message.